It's episode 322 of The Platformers, a show about games and nerd culture. And I'm your host, Brian Barnett.
I am the Radiant Song, Chris Cornelise.
I'm a guy, Will Berkeley.
He's just a normal human.
I'm just a regular. We're innocent men.
We're just normal men.
I too am an innocent man, Lucas White.
Excellent. Excellent. It's been a minute since all four of us have been on this show.
We assembled the Avengers for once.
We did.
True.
You love to see it.
Or, oh shit, hold on. I just got an idea for something else I could talk about. Perhaps we assembled the X-Men. How's about that?
Possibly.
How's about that? But we've got a lot of stuff to get to. But we're going to keep this one easy breezy. We're going to try to get out of here in 2 hours, but we're going to see how that works.
Easy breezy, beautiful cover girl.
Indeed. Maybe she was born with it.
Maybe it's Maybelline.
Will's got my back on the makeup jokes.
Oh, yeah.
It's good stuff. Anyways, let's break the ice by going directly, not passing go, not collecting $200, going directly to Audrey's book corner, guys. Here we go. It is... What?
I just said books.
Oh, okay, books. It is shocking the degree to which R.A. Salvatore's Attack of the Clones novel is better than the movie. Like, shocking. Will, have you read these? Has anybody read these?
I've read Revenge of the Sith.
Okay. I'm halfway through that one right now. That's also leagues better than the movie. It's crazy.
I mean, doesn't really shock me. Like, a lot of the novelizations are allowed to just actually cut the chaff, fill out areas that needed filling out and such. Plus, Salvatore is a pretty good writer. So
Yeah. It is crazy the degree to which, like, just adding internal, like, monologues, like, internal thoughts makes the transition to the dark side, like, actually, like, believable. It's crazy.
Makes sense.
It does make sense.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Got to get that motivation and such.
George Lucas, not a character director, unfortunately. But
Shot, reverse shot.
yeah. But anyways, I've been checking those out. I've also been reading Stuart Turton's newest novel, which is called The Last Murder at the End of the World, which is, I'm only like 7 chapters in or something like that, but it's really good so far. I really loved his last 2 books. His debut novel is, I think, maybe the most impressive debut I've ever read. I'm probably forgetting something, but The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle is an incredible book. And The Devil in the Dark Water, his follow-up, is also really good. This one's shaping up to be just as good as those. So I'm excited to check more of that out. But that's all I've got. Lucas, what do you have? I know you've got something for Audrey's book corner.
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of start off with anime and then transition into a book, so bear with me.
Shit.
Weeb!
Yeah. Believe it or not, I'm going to talk about
Fucking
dungeons. So my wife and I started watching the show called Delicious in Dungeon, which was like really popular like a year ago.
I've been meaning to watch that.
It's still ongoing. Everyone
It's
loves
a
that
fun.
shit.
It's a fun show.
And
Yeah,
Freerun. I've been meaning to check that one out as well.
Yeah, same. But yeah, like it's really cool, especially from the perspective of someone who speaks wizardry. Because this was clearly written by someone who like is a real sicko about like wizardry and like first person dungeon crawlers.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and like if you look into the author, she actually is in a big way.
I as a wizardry person, also noticed this.
Yeah.
This is the one that is also called Dungeon Meshi.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
But basically, like the way the series like presents the dungeon and like the rules and stuff, even though it's like kind of a comedy, it really doesn't skimp out on like the actual danger that's happening. And like some of the ways like the monsters operate that don't really line up with like other like similar fantasy games and stuff. One example is like kobolds or dogs, which is like totally a wizardry coded thing. But yeah, like she finds a way to kind of like take the vibes from dungeon games and then like twist it into this comedy, and it's about like people trying to get through a dungeon, screwing up royally, desperately needing to go back in because of something that happened, and choosing in order to like facilitate that, they're just gonna eat monsters as they kill them to get through the dungeon without having to leave, without having to like spend money on food. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And they run into this absolute monster eating sicko who like basically turns the show into a cooking show at times. They get really detailed into like they kill a mimic, for example, and they sort of like boil it like a lobster, and they go through like the deveining, and it's very funny.
It's
Just
food porn.
thoroughly in depth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Not to be confused with Food Wars, which is literally food porn.
Yes.
Oh God. But anyway, so like as I tend to do, I'll get interested in one thing and it'll like springboard into hyperfixating on other things, or just like trying something new. So I'm reading the manga for that, and it's really close to the show, so that's fine. But crucially, I was in a store called Second and Charles, which is sort of like a hybrid new/used bookstore that also sells like toys and Gundam models and all kinds of other stuff.
The kind of place I would build. Cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I found a really cheap book, and so I decided to actually read an isekai light novel for the first time.
Rip.
Yeah, and it is
Calling out
called...
for the brother.
Yeah. It's called The Otherworlder Exploring the Dungeon.
The
On the
Otherworlder
cover,
Exploring the Dungeon.
there's a like nerdy guy in glasses. He's got an assault rifle. There's a cat on his lap. There's a silly robot in the corner, and then like more traditional fantasy-looking characters in the background. So the problem with light novels is most of them are like all about, from my understanding, because like I said, this is the first one I'm reading, but they make it pretty clear in the titles that they're about like wish fulfillment from like the sad, lonely nerd kind of perspective. So
Quite
it's
a
like,
lot of them, yeah.
yeah. So it's like, what if the loser died and came back and was a video game hero kind of thing? This one stood out to me because it didn't give off those vibes right away. And what's really interesting is there's also a big element of like real danger to the dungeon in this series. I'm not going to get too into the premise because it's just like rules. But basically, like a PMC group is basically sent to this other world that's been established to go explore the dungeon for capitalism reasons. And this guy gets roped into it because he's expendable and desperate, and basically found the job on Craigslist when they needed a warm body to fill the team. He gets immediately separated and basically has to like figure it out all by himself. And I've read like 100 or so pages. I'm about a third of the way through, and he has not yet entered the dungeon at all. Yeah,
The real dungeon was the war in your mind.
Yeah, well, kind of. But most of the book has been spent with him like dealing with society around the dungeon. Because he's like this guy who comes in from another world, and he's got like military equipment and stuff. So he's like, he has to like set up a camp outside, just somewhere that seems safe. And then he's got like all his equipment, and then he has to deal with like meeting locals and like sussing out whether or not he can like trust them. Like he gets robbed and taken advantage of, so he loses a lot of his stuff through like a relationship that seemed to start really friendly, Then he has to like go through like basically bureaucracy to even be allowed into the dungeon, and they start playing with things like, you know, what would the requirements be if entering the dungeon had like red tape associated with it, or there were like agencies in charge of it, and what would like police look like if police had to be in like a town that surrounds a dungeon that's like where everyone wants to be. And he starts getting roped in with like sketchy trade companies and all this other stuff, and just like it has found every possible way to like tell an interesting little story about this guy just trying to even enter the dungeon in the first place without getting like anywhere near it. And like a lot of the danger has been like social. Things like being, you know, being betrayed, people trying to steal his stuff because it's rare or whatever, trying to navigate the like bureaucratic systems. It's just really interesting how it's not even like anime-y in the way that it's you know, a lot of anime will be like, these are the rules, blah, 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 blah. And this one is like him like tripping over like predicaments and stuff like really organically.
Sounds like a really good world building exercise, honestly. Like that's probably what it started as. Just here is the concept, here is this world built around it. Now how would this world function?
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
explore that in as detail as it can, both in terms of writing and navigating it as an outsider. So yeah, intriguing, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it again plays with wizardry in those ways of like, it's not just a fun video game adventure being in one of these things. It's like there is real immediate peril, and things can go wrong, you know, in a split second. And you know, you're not really going to necessarily get out of a problem. Even if you survive, it's still going to be brutal in some way. Yeah, so I accidentally picked a decent light novel, I think.
Nice.
We'll see how it goes when like other characters show up and the actual dungeon part happens. But I think compared to something like, is it okay to pick up girls in a dungeon? I made a decent choice at the used books shop.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of trash isekai. Like some would say all of it, but like I'm not going to go that far. But yeah, as you say, a lot of it is just, you know, wish fulfillment or just following genre tropes and conventions because that's what sells, or that's, you know, that's what they're trying to do. And yeah, just a lot of them really lack much in the way of their own real identity and creativity.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you picked a good one.
I also learned that apparently those like really long, absurdly descriptive titles are apparently like a way of authors fighting like bad discovery algorithms and stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is just wild to think about. But yeah,
When you think about how many goddamn isekais there are, then it's like, yeah, they just got more and more outlandish because then it catches.
yeah.
It's like there's a lot of dungeon RPGs out there, but I'm going to remember Mon Yu because I remember that's the one with the absurdly long title, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, or like, oh, the premise is the title, so I have no choice but to engage with the premise versus like a real title. I don't have to pick the book up off the shelf to know what it's about. Very, very cynical.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Yeah,
I have
what's that?
I have something for Book Corner.
All right.
Ooh,
Mm-hmm.
Kira and I have been reading Use of Weapons by Ian Banks. And
Interesting.
it's pretty cool. So if you don't know who Banks was, he's most famous for the culture novels. His best known book in that series is probably Player of Games, which I would also heavily recommend. But Use of Weapons is interesting because it's structurally cool. So it follows two protagonists. The first one is a woman who works for the culture, and among the many things that she does, she's kind of like the handler for this assassin. And the other person is the assassin. And it is written in two different storylines, one of them going chronologically beginning to end, and the other one going into beginning. And basically the conceit is the assassin is missing and they don't know where he is. So it's her story of trying to find him and his story of trying not to be found. His story going present to past, her story going back to like start to end, and they meet in the middle.
Nice.
Interesting.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a very, very cool book. If you've never read Ian M. Banks, highly recommend it. One of like the all-time great science fiction writers. Start with Player of Games. Do yourself a favor. It's very easy to understand, but Use of Weapons is really cool, and the structure is really interesting. So, worth checking out. I don't want to spoil anything, because you should read the culture books, because neat stuff happens in them. But yeah.
The list they go.
Nice.
I have nothing to add to Book Corner, so I guess we can segue from there.
What a shame. What a shame.
I took a book with me to the hospital, and I didn't need it because I was unconscious for the hospital trip. So,
Well, you know what? I think it's probably for the best, to be honest.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. I've got a couple of games that I can talk about this week. Let's go with some stuff I was just kind of fooling around with. Oh, you know what? You were talking about anime. I'll talk about a little bit of a cartoon that I was watching while I was sick. I don't think I talked about this on the show, actually, but I got sick. I got the flu for like a week and a half. And during that, I was totally just sapped of strength. And so I laid on the couch and watched all of X-Men 97, which is which is really good. So I'm not gonna go into a bunch of that, but you know, it's on Disney Plus, which I hate subscription services. I think we should just, it was a mistake to leave cable, but we were being taken advantage of, and then it seemed like by switching to individual subscriptions, we were going to be able to not be taken advantage of, and now we're being taken advantage of worse than ever. So
what a shock.
Capitalism always going to find a way to do what it wants to do, which is take as much money from us as possible while giving us the smallest possible return. But
I'm just going to put on my invisible tricorn hat here.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyways, X-Men 97 is very, very good. And the end of it sets it up for a very interesting season 2. It actually encompasses a lot of individual X-Men storylines that are in other ways unrelated, but in a way that makes this kind of, I won't say like a greatest hits yet because it's only been one season, but kind of a greatest hits of a lot of cool X-Men stories that I enjoy. So I recommend it. It's good stuff.
Out of curiosity, where does does the series come in with assumed knowledge or anything? Does it like start at the very beginning, or what does it do here? Because I know I've heard about it. I hear it's very good, but I know very little about, how it all sets up.
I think people would be totally fine jumping in having no knowledge. They don't really explain a lot. They do. I think it starts in media res when they're like in the middle of a mission. But
so it's not like full on origin story or anything. It's
no.
Already.
It's not an origin story. In fact, in some ways, it kind of plays its cards like it's an ending story, but there's a lot that happens, but everything that's required knowledge going in, they tell you. So
okay,
they handle it the best possible way that you can when you're doing something like this. Like they're going to pay off a lot of stuff, but then they set it up, even if it happened before the show.
Because it's the sequel to the original X-Men animated series, right? Like,
kind of, yeah. So
fair enough.
I didn't watch the end of the original series, so I don't know if this follows directly on the heels of that. That would be interesting, but yeah, I always watched the X-Men show when it was like on TV, but never like consistently. So I would just catch random episodes here and there. But I mean, this is minor spoilers for the original series. Well, I guess it could be decent spoilers, but skip ahead like 30 seconds if you don't want to hear this, or just like take your headphones off or whatever. In the original series, Morph dies, right? Yeah, no, he's in this one, so it's not
Okay.
That's
so not
that,
direct, but
not direct, but yeah, it feels like it feels very much like this could be a many years later follow up to that series. Like the vibes are very similar. It handles darker stuff than I remember the original handling, but that could just be because I was a kid and I wasn't picking up on it. I don't know. But yeah,
it was a Saturday morning kids show, so there was
Yeah.
probably at least some that was carved up. But yeah,
yeah, this one is
I
intense.
think it's
I would not.
deliberately darker.
Yeah, I would not recommend this for kids.
They assume it's a bunch of 30-year-olds watching it who watch the old show.
Yeah, it's real good.
Yeah.
It's real good. I respect it, and it is.
so
It is the
you're not going to be
best-
penalized.
Yeah, it's the best Marvel thing I've seen in a fucking long time. So
Good stuff.
yeah,
So you're not going to be penalized for not seeing the first 96 of them.
no. You can watch 97 on to 100, and then who knows where it'll go from there.
All right.
But yeah, because of that, I wanted to jump into, because of that and my preview that I did for the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection at EVO, I decided, well, why don't I jump into some Marvel games now? And I started playing Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. And actually went through and did a bunch of character trials for Marvel 3 and found a bunch of characters that I like. And you know what? Having played now 2 tag fighters, I get why people like MVC. You know what I mean? So I like MVC 3. I hope that it gets a rollback patch. That's really a bummer because I would probably play it somewhat regularly at this point just to like kind of check it out. But yeah, I recommend going back and checking out old fighting games because fighting games are good.
It was always
Fighting
fun
games
to
are good.
watch as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to watch some because sometimes people will still. I mean, Marvel is still popular. Like there were Marvel tournaments at EVO. There are still like locals and online tournaments where people play Marvel. So I'm probably going to start checking out some Marvel 3 tournaments and just kind of like see what it's like at a high level. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun. I like it.
I don't remember specifics.
There's no shortage of all-time EVO top 8s that happened to also be Marvel 3.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
probably.
True.
Yeah, I could go back and watch those. That would be fun.
I don't remember
Quite a few
specifics, but I feel like I remember the story in Marvel Infinite being really funny. So I think like even you know the problems that game has, if you're into like the goofy jokes and stuff that they do and like the versus stuff, I think it's actually worth playing through the campaign.
Isn't the idea of Marvel Infinite, if I recall correctly, that Sigma from Mega Man and Ultron from Marvel like
That
combine
is correct. Yes.
to like
Yeah.
take over the world? That's so dumb.
And there's
It's
just
so
like
dumb,
really
but so good.
yeah, there's really goofy pairings along the way in the story with some like really silly cutscenes. If
Yeah.
I remember right, like I think they put Ryu and Hulk together, and
That's-
there's like
yeah.
Monster Hunter shenanigans or something it was years ago, but I remember being very tickled by it.
I still can't believe they didn't put the X-Men in that game. That's wild. But
Yeah, I feel like licensing and budget cuts were responsible for a lot of woes that game has. Because those who play it say like mechanically really good.
yeah, it's good.
It's just everything else around it that just
yeah,
failed horribly.
it's good. The roster leaves a lot to be desired, and the graphics, I think, leave a lot to be desired. But I mean, I think Marvel 3 graphics leave a lot to be desired after 2, but that's me. So
Yeah, but I feel like as far as the stylized look goes, it looks a lot better than Infinite does, which just looks
for sure.
cheap and unnatural.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm excited for the Maximilian Dude funded Infinite and Beyond mod that is making that game look pretty and rebalancing it.
Yep.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that
Yep.
stuff looks cool.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty good stuff.
Shout out to Max.
Indeed. Chris, what's something you got for this week?
Let me consult the list.
As I slowly
So
sink down.
List.
yeah, so I have a whole I have a whole bunch of voice crack. I have a whole bunch of games that I've been dabbling over the last couple of weeks because I was kind of in a funk and just like, I don't know, nothing's really grabbing my attention, and I wasn't really like, I was looking for something story related and just couldn't find anything, so I just went, fuck it, gameplay. So I got a whole bunch of dumb shit in here. So I'll throw this one out there. So have any of you heard of a game called Brotato?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Played
this
a little
game
bit.
actually rules. Would not expect it from the name, and from the look of it, it's like this looks like the ultimate fucking Ascended Flash game, right? It just has that style of 2001 Madness Combat kind of look
Yeah.
to it, but it plays like auto shooter, so Vampire Survivor style. But it has so so many different like items, characters, unlocks, etc. And it's just quick, fast, really fun. It's got a good balance of, frantic action and figuring out buildcraft and everything like that, how you want to do it. And it's probably my favorite in that kind of subgenre by a landslide. Like once I picked it up, I
Wow.
just kept playing it for a long time. It is crazy fun. And it really surprised me because it's a game called Brotato. So, but yeah, just for a while there, it's just like anytime I picked up my Switch, it's like, cool, I'm gonna hit up this for a while and do a run or two of that. Which yeah, so I played a ton of Brotato and highly recommend it if you just want that kind of dumb fun. So there's that. How's that?
Nice.
But yeah, there's plenty more I can talk about, but I'll pass it around. So Lucas, Will, you guys got anything?
Louis can go first if he has something.
Oh, why not? So since I've been on the show last, I've been through several games, but I'll go ahead and just talk about the most recent one. It's called a Bakeru.
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 So basically, this game is an homage or spiritual successor, kind of, to the what we refer to as the mystical ninja games.
Oh, I can see that immediately. Yeah.
You can also call them Ganbare Goemon. Yeah, so basically the way the lore works is the guy who eventually was like the Itagaki, but for Goemon, left Konami like wait, Itagaki, I misspoke. Iga. Sorry.
Igarashi.
Yeah, Igarashi. Jesus Christ. Anyway,
I mean,
that guy
Itagaki
who was
is
in that
probably
role-
kind of a similar story, but yeah.
Yeah. Basically, when Konami was going through it in like the early 2000s, this guy left, and Goemon games immediately stopped coming out. He started Good Feel, which is best known for the work it's done with Nintendo. It's done a lot of the like really cutesy, more like easy kid-friendly platformers, so like your Epic Yarn, the Princess Peach game that came out recently, that kind of stuff. Though they mostly work with Nintendo, they're still independent, so they finally were like, all right, we're going to do Goemon. And if you look at a picture of Goemon and you look at a picture of Bakeru, is basically the same guy.
I just saw the splash art for it because I hadn't heard of it, and then I instantly saw what they were doing with it.
Yeah, it's very cheeky. So I don't know about any of you guys as far as like Mystical Ninja, but when I had my Nintendo 64 when I was a kid, I don't remember how, but I ended up with a copy of Mystical Ninja starring Goemon, and it's still, I think, to this day, one of the more like bizarre, interesting games I've ever played, and it just lives in my head forever. That game is so weird in so many different ways. So when Bakeru came about, I was like, oh man, it's going to be one of those, maybe. I kind of forgot that Good Feel's whole thing is like appealing to kids now. So it is I called it homage and maybe spiritual successor. It leans more towards the homage direction, because it is much more palatable, much more like aimed at actual children. It is very like simple, straightforward kind of game, and it is very heavy on like Japanese trivia. So it's like it's weird. So it like has a lot of the energy of those games, especially like the 64 games where it's like it's loud and bright and the characters are quirky and there's like giant robot battles. It's just like all the edges are kind of sanded off.
Right.
And it makes sense, but it's like kind of disappointing in that way. Just to give an example, like in the Goemon game on N64, whenever there was a big boss battle, while Japan has basically been taken over by an evil performance play troupe, Goemon just can summon a giant robot for no reason. They never explain it. He just does it. He like goes out, blows into a conch shell, and then a giant robot version of himself shows up. And it has its own theme song with vocals, and it plays every single boss battle, and it's amazing. Especially when you're a child and you don't know what anime tropes are yet. Here, there's a giant robot, and it's like a big tea kettle that's also like a ship you fly around in. And it has like a sequence when it turns into a robot, but it just doesn't have the same punch to it. So like, kind of wasn't sure what to expect going into the game, having that like kind of historical baggage, and came out kind of like, I understand this is not for me, but I understand what you're doing, if that makes sense. It's like, okay, maybe like the owner was kind of like feeling nostalgic about Goemon and kind of was like, let's just kind of like put some of the vibes in there for like the people who would know, but it's not
Not aimed at that necessarily.
Yeah, it's not going for that audience explicitly, which is kind of interesting. Like, if you're going to kind of evoke your past work, we have so many examples where it's like, oh, the guy who did the thing came back and he's doing the thing again, but it's different because of, IP ownership or whatever.
We mentioned Igarashi earlier. It's like Bloodstained is just Castlevania. That's fine.
Yeah, this is kind of different in that it evokes the old work, but is kind of doing something else in a lot of ways. I respect it. But I came away a little like unsure of what to think. I believe I ended up giving it an 8 because it's like sometimes for me it's like I don't really get it, or it's not really hitting for me. But I also see what like is happening here, and it does that thing really well.
The quality is there; it's just not yours.
Yeah. Like some games don't like just automatically get a pass for that, but in some cases like this, it's like everything falls into place so neatly. It's kind of like a respect kind of thing for me, and that's kind of where I'm at with Bakeru. I think if you like 3D platformers, this is one of those, but it's not going to like replace or bring back the Mystical Ninja stuff. You're better off just playing those again.
There's a tagline for you. If you like 3D platformers, this is one of them.
One of the games of all time.
Like one of the things I said when I was reviewing it was like, I can imagine being a kid and playing this and like being into anime kind of for the first time. And being like, oh, this is cool, Like I was able to put myself in that perspective because the intent was so clearly that. Yeah.
be where you were when you first got the N64 Legend of the Mystical Ninja.
Yeah, exactly.
Good stuff. Will, what you got?
I played, man, I played a bunch of things. I
You can
played
only choose one.
I played Stormgate, like Kris played Stormgate, so I guess I'll
Yeah,
talk
I
about
played
Stormgate.
Stormgate. We can talk about Stormgate.
So Stormgate is an RTS made by a bunch of ex-Blizzard people. It's like if you read the description on Frost Giant's website of like who their team is, it's like, oh, that was StarCraft 2 designer, that was StarCraft 2 designer, that was Warcraft 3 designer, like, and it feels very much like a Blizzard RTS in a good way, like in terms of just how like structures work and build orders and stuff like that. And it's early access. But I don't know. It didn't vibe with me, Kris.
It didn't vibe with me either, and I'm still trying to exactly figure out why.
Like, I think part of it is I just don't think, like, the visuals are that interesting.
Part of it is that, like, they're going for a very stylized look, and to a point, I get that, that's fine, but it just, I don't know. So much of it, pretty much the entire package just feels like we have StarCraft 2 at home, right?
Yeah.
And I get that that's kind of what they're going for. It's like they wouldn't let us make more StarCraft, so we went on our own to make more StarCraft. I respect that.
But the StarCraft 2 we have at home is StarCraft 2. The other StarCraft
Exactly.
2 that we have at home.
That's the problem. It's I have no reason to play this over StarCraft 2, and there's nothing about it that strikes me as like Stormgate. Like everything about it, everything neat about it is so almost directly overtly like aped from StarCraft or Warcraft. Like the structure of the campaign missions and everything, like that first one is just the Warcraft 3 one, but slightly worse. The plot for that, you know, starting out finding magical blades that are probably corruptive. Warcraft 3, you know.
We have Frostmourne at home.
Yeah.
Straight up. And so yeah,
That's
so
a
that
great
just
mission. Like it's going to be a really tall order to do the getting the Frostmourne mission in an RTS and have it top that mission.
Yeah, that is an excellent mission. That is an excellent campaign. Like Warcraft 3's campaign is top notch.
Yeah, and a lot of the missions you can see like, okay, like the first mission is very much like the very first human mission in Warcraft 3. And like I appreciate that. I do think it's cool that they're doing like a sci-fi fantasy fusion where it's like, oh, the humans have like big technology, but like the enemies are like basically like a super advanced race that kind of look like angels, and then the other guys are just actual demons. So, you know, it's the Burning Legion and the Protoss basically. Not exactly.
It's StarCraft if they're fighting the Diablo factions.
Yeah, basically.
It's that.
And I think it has some neat ideas. I think, like I said, I don't particularly care for the art. I don't mind stylized art. I just think the characters don't look very good. And it has like a readability problem, which is not good in an RTS. Like I need to look at a thing and be like, I know what this is immediately.
That's the struggle of RTS in general.
Quick question, vis-a-vis the readability. Is this a like big number RTS or a small number RTS? Yeah. Like, is this one of those things where it's like you have like units of armies that you're controlling, or is this like individual like people that you're controlling and you have like 20 or something?
This is like StarCraft 2.
Okay.
Big armies, not squads.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I mean, it's probably realistically more of a combination of like between Warcraft and StarCraft somewhere in there, but yes, lots of units. I do think. Oh, sorry. A lot of the gameplay ideas are really cool. Like, I think I like the idea of there being creep on the map again, and like you kill them and then you get stuff for holding their camps. Like, hey, this one gives you resources, or this one gives you vision, or this one makes your units faster. That's cool. I think like there's some really neat ideas for the units. One of them, like one of the human ones, is literally just a siege tank, which is really funny. But I don't know. It's I'm still trying to figure out like why doesn't this grab me, because it's not badly designed and it is in early access, right? Like it's gonna get better.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, why? And I think
in the exact same boat. It really is just a case of I don't get it. I want this game to succeed. I want to like it. I just feel nothing for it.
Yeah,
So
I think
it's just not sticky, or it's just less than the sum of its parts.
it's just. I mean, it feels like I think part of it is like it's just not done right. Like RTS games are expensive and
Yeah.
like they're very expensive. They require a lot of development and iteration, and like you know, if you've seen the amount of times that like Warcraft and Starcraft have been patched over their lifetimes to like get the competitive balance better, like you know, you can tell like, oh, of course it's not going to have that right out of the gate. But I think the other thing is like, for me, I think it was like StarCraft's universe is immediately interesting, and this is not to me.
That's the problem as well. I feel no reason to be attached to these characters, to this world setting just yet. None of it, while it's aping a lot of the beats, like when I played Warcraft 3 for the first time, it's like that first dialogue banter between Arthas and Uther. It's like, cool. You paint the picture. You have the established character that I remember from Warcraft 2. You have Arthas, the new guy, the banter, the friendly kind of familial rapport built instantly. And then you get a feel for Arthas immediately, and then you watch as he goes through his steps. You're rewarded for exploring in that first mission because there's little side quests and stuff you can do, which give you items to increase power, which is good because that's Warcraft 3. And that first mission is really strong, and that entire campaign ends up being really strong. You watch, Arthas's progression as a character and where it ends up. All the seeds were planted, and it's like, that's great. I don't feel any of that for any of the equivalents right now, like the main character being Amara, who is mechanically she's Tracer. She has a blink and she has two SMGs, right? Like that's another reason. It's like, man, that's overt. But I just don't feel any of that. It doesn't come across nearly as strong, even with some little background and story and such. And I don't know, it's missing something, and I just don't know what. I don't know how to quantify it exactly just yet.
Yeah, it's just not as immediately compelling to me. And like again, like I want this game to be successful. Like I miss RTS as a genre, but like the first thing I did, I think when I finished my preview for Stormgate, which is up on Shack News if you want to read it, is literally boot up Wings of Liberty and start a new campaign in Wings of Liberty.
You want to play SC2 co-op sometime? I want to play SC2 co-op.
Hell yeah. But I think like that's really telling, right? And I think it's also like it's the Unforgiven problem, where like there was a joke for a really long time that like Unforgiven killed the Western, not because like people were tired of Westerns, but because it was like, what do you do after this? Yeah, like that's it. That's such a statement on the genre. Like, what do you do after this?
I was just thinking about that. Like, not Unforgiven in particular, but just like it feels to me like Blizzard has such a stranglehold on the best in this genre that a lot of people just stop trying, and that's a shame.
I think it's also like
partially that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons for it. I think it's like RTSs are really expensive, and like you go back to StarCraft 2 and like the way that it's designed, and like you can see the money. Like it's the game is almost 15 years old, but you can see like the way that the cutscenes are directed and the way all the stuff that there is, and like the way that like the missions are and the design of the campaign. Like it is a game that feels expensive and ambitious in a way that like AAA games used to feel expensive and ambitious, and not like everything else.
Yeah.
And like, yes, I would love more StarCraft. Like I would pre-order StarCraft 3. I don't pre-order games no more. If you said StarCraft 3 is coming out, I would pre-order StarCraft 3.
100%.
But like I think the thing that makes StarCraft 2 cool is like Brood War and StarCraft 1 are great games, and StarCraft 2 is a very different game. Like it's not just the same units and like the same campaign structure. Like it's very different, and it has a very unique identity that is still pretty unique among RTSs. Like nothing else feels like it is set up in terms of like its multiplayer or the co-op missions or the whatever. And Stormgate feels very much like, look, we did StarCraft 2 again, and it's like, yeah, but I have that game, and it's basically perfect. Like
it took a long time to get to where it is. Multiple iterations and builds and everything, and things that they wanted to make work didn't, and things that they didn't ended up working. Like they didn't think the co-op mode in SC2 would be that big a deal, but it ended up being like the thing that saved that game for me. So
Yeah, and like I want obviously I want Stormgate to have that. I just feel like everything about it feels like I can see where this is. Like I can see that this is like Warcraft 3 or StarCraft 2 or here's the co-op mode, like which is literally just a one-to-one of the StarCraft 2 co-op mode. And I don't blame anybody for that because it's the same designers. And they are, the co-op mode in StarCraft 2 is good, but like you have to have something that differentiates it, and it
nothing
was
about it is Stormgate.
yeah, like
It's
I don't
just
know.
lesser StarCraft, and that's a problem.
Yeah,
What you need to sell me on this? You need to sell me on this setting, worlds, characters, units. Give me something to clutch onto that isn't just immediately making me think of older games that I already own.
yeah, and yeah, I think it's just like I don't like the aesthetic as much. I don't think the world is as cool. I couldn't even tell you any units that I really like except like one. I really like the mech with the gun that the humans have. I think that one is cool. Vulcan, I think it is, where it kind of looks like the
Yes.
Diva mech and it has a big ass minigun, and
Yeah.
that's cool. Like that's a neat unit.
I think that's the only unit I can think of when you started describing. I'm like, I think that's the one he's talking about. He said the name. Yep, that's the one.
Yeah, and I don't know, like a siege tank, like a siege tank is a siege tank, a Zergling, Hydralisk, whatever, like Zealot. Like StarCraft is so unique and different than every other RTS, and it feels like it's like, look, we're trying to be StarCraft, and again, I don't blame them for doing that, but I just don't know what Stormgate is supposed to be. I know what StarCraft is, and I'm sad it's not around
Mhm.
anymore. But I don't know what Stormgate is, and I don't know what I'm supposed to be like invested in because I just
Yeah.
yeah.
And even like going back to, because I tried to be fair, like I had to really put myself in the mindset. I'm just like, so issues of readability, of not really getting attached or anything like that. My immediate thoughts are obviously I'm comparing it to the StarCrafts and the Warcrafts or whatever, but I'm trying very hard to put myself back in the perspective of how did I feel when I was introduced to those games? How did I feel when I first played Warcraft 3, when I first played StarCraft Brood War and all of that? I can remember where I was for some of them, like the rough time frame and how I got, my hands on them. And yeah, they stood out to me then more so than this does now, despite me trying, very hard to be fair to it. And it's like, ugh, I don't know.
Yeah.
It needs
I,
something. It's
it
missing the
needs
X factor.
It needs something. I hope they find it. It is an early access. You can go download it on Steam and play it. I think if you like RTSs, it's worth checking out just to see what they're doing. And obviously, I hope it's successful. I don't know what the secret sauce is, but I know that it isn't there.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Yeah, hopefully they find it.
Yeah, I hope they do too. There are other RTS projects in development right now that are all various levels of promising that hopefully, one of them picks up because the genre needs a resurgence. I miss it.
yeah, and it's funny because almost all of them are ex-Blizzard devs.
Most of them are, yeah. There's a few that are, others. There's a few that I can think of at least two that are coming out hopefully soonish that are aping more the Command and Conquers, the
Mhm.
Westwood style, as opposed to the Blizzard one. And, I hope they work out.
Yeah.
If Stormgate doesn't work out, maybe Zero Space will.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is that like as much as we would like to pretend that we would be okay with something else, is we really just want another StarCraft.
Basically, the setting, the characters, the factions, we've come to love them. It's very hard to let go of them, especially when what you have is just not nearly as compelling. But then on the other hand, like the new factions, when they added new factions to things like Warcraft, like they fit in very well, and we came to learn and appreciate them pretty quickly. Like the night elves and the undead are good additions to that compared to what it was just orcs and humans.
Mm-hmm.
So there is room for new ideas and new growth even within the established. It's just I don't know if it's here.
Yeah, I agree.
Interesting.
Anyway, it's on Steam. It's free. You can play it if you're interested in it.
Cool. Nice. A couple of things that I was playing other than that I'm not really going to get into because I haven't really been playing them that much. One of them is Sackboy: A Big Adventure, which I bought for Riley because she saw Sackboy on the PlayStation Network, like kind of scrolling thing, and was like, "Ooh, who's that?" And I'm like, "Well, that's Sackboy. He's from Little Big Planet." And Sackboy Big Adventure. I was like, I haven't played this, and I imagine it's good. I've heard good things about it, so I started playing it, and yeah, it's fun. Pretty
Solid.
pretty straightforward. Like Little Big Planet is good.
You know what you're getting into with it.
Yeah, I knew what I was getting into. I've played multiplayer a lot with Riley, and it's just platforming, 3D fun, pretty easy. And then I jumped into Marvel Puzzle Quest, which is like a match 3 game that is free to play on Steam, and I've been playing that a little bit on Steam Deck. As I was just kind of looking up different Marvel games, and I was like, oh, here's a free one. Oh, it's a match 3 game. It's unfortunately not the match game that I was hoping it was, which is like Tetris Attack. It is like
It is old school mobile game, baby.
well, yeah, where it's just like just move the one thing to match the 3 or 4, and then that's it. And
Match
it's
3
just
style, yeah.
Not as interesting, but I did that for a little bit. But that's pretty much it. I don't really have a lot to say because I've been doing other stuff. But Chris, what else you got?
Well, since I just spoke about Stormgate, you got anything else, Lucas?
Yeah. I could either talk about Fairy Tale Dungeons or Sam and Max. Anyone
Let's do
has
Sam and
a-
Max.
All right.
Sam and Max is good.
Cool. So a few weeks ago, just 1 week ago. Jesus Christ. I
Time is an
reviewed.
illusion.
Yeah, it really is. I reviewed Sam and Max: The Devil's Playhouse remastered. So basically, in the ashes of Telltale games, there were a lot of little I don't know, splinter groups or whatever that kind of started doing things. Some original games like the Star Trek game was ex-Telltale people. Another group of ex-Telltale people, they snapped up the rights to the Sam and Max games from like the early 2000s or mid 2000s and decided to remaster them. And they've been putting these games out fairly slowly. It's been a few years since the second one. There's 3 of them. They're really good remasters, just in terms of like they kind of clean up a lot of the old Telltale engine jank. They mess around with like the lighting, the visuals a little bit, make the audio sound better. Like a lot of these older Telltale games are in worse shape than the later ones, which were also in bad shape. So they do a lot to kind of make this game function better. But I think, aside, like I've really liked Sam and Max for a long time. They're like, and in my mind, that's like the peak of comedy in video games is the original Sam and Max.
They had a TV show, didn't they?
Yeah, cartoon show.
For whatever reason, like I didn't watch that much of it, but I can, as we speak, I can literally hear the fucking intro in my head right now. It's like, why are you here? Why can't I remember all these other things, but I can remember this?
It's a good theme song.
Yeah.
Oh man. Gosh. So I remember when these games were first announced, and it was like out of nowhere. It was unbelievable even then. There was only one Sam and Max game, and LucasArts canceled the sequel, and that was kind of it for like point-and-click adventure games for seemingly forever.
And
then Telltale comes
between
along.
LucasArts and Telltale.
Yeah, really big gap. Telltale comes along out of nowhere, and they're like, we got the rights to Sam and Max, and we're trying this episodic thing, and then we're just gonna see where it goes. And it went pretty well. Those games are rough around the edges technically, but they're still really funny. They really capture the spirit of those characters, despite there being some differences. And they do the point and click style, but they kind of try to streamline it a little bit. Back in the day, we call them scum games. They used to have like this little box of verbs, and you would like click on an item and then be like use or look or other stuff. And you kind of figure out the puzzles that way. This is like more straightforward. Like they take all the verbs out. Clicking is just verbing, and yeah. What I kind of found myself looking back on is like when these games came out, it was season 3 was right before The Walking Dead by like I want to say less than 2 years. And The Walking Dead
Eclipsed
the first
everything
season.
else.
Yeah, that was a like world changing game. And even that game slightly had some like point and click elements, but mostly got rid of them. And then by the end of the season, they were all but gone. So season 3 of Sam & Max is in a lot of ways like the last time a game like that happened that was like not like a indie throwback kind of thing, if that makes sense. I don't want to say AAA, but like somewhere in between.
That or like the recent Monkey Island that they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, just more throwbacks, basically.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I like that stuff, but it's like they're recreating the old stuff instead of trying to like do more with it in the same kind of way the Sam & Max games did. And it's just like it really struck me that like, oh shit, this is like over, and it's over again. Like, it was over, and then it was really over, and then
even
these
Telltale
happened.
is effectively
Yeah.
gone.
Like Telltale,
They're alive, but like,
yeah,
The Telltale that's back is not the one that was here before.
all you need to do is look at Tales from the Borderlands 2 and see that.
yeah. It was like Telltale abandoned that style for various reasons, then died, then it's back or whatever. But like in that, the Sam & Max games were, I think, kind of, I don't want to say miraculously, but pretty unlikely for those, I thought, to ever come back. Like Sam & Max itself is like a really, I think, difficult sell for an IP, even though it has like a history and an audience. It's weird in a way that like I feel like is hard to really like grow an audience. It's like the people who are into it they love these games, but like it's not Monkey Island. It's really hard to sell. Like you think it'd be easier to sell like a couple of like deranged sociopath like cartoon characters that are also cops, but it's just like edgy in a different kind of way.
It's been a long time since Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was like seeing this game come out again, especially because like there was a pretty long gap. I think I reviewed the first season remastered when I was still at Prima. The second one came out like maybe a year or so later, and then it's been a huge gap. COVID and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like kind of like safely off in the distance for a while. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, it's coming, but like, it's not like we don't know when it's coming out, blah blah. And then it's like here, and it's like, oh shit, I have to like emotionally handle this again, and it's like weird. So yeah, it's just like one of those things that like it was just weird to experience again. And then like when I posted the review, it got a lot of traction, and it was like seeing that same sentiment a lot. It was just really strange. It was like, okay, I'm not crazy that I'm like feeling some type of way about this like silly animal violence game. I don't really know what the point is, but it's really fucked up to like you have to go through that again, or like feel that way because of a silly video game. It's like, damn, what in the world? Also, the game's just like really funny. Worth playing. Like, if like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like parallel mascots to Sam and Max, but like on a wholesome side. It's like if Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck were like cops that were more than happy to abuse their powers, but in like a really funny. It's that hard thing about like marketing those characters. It's like they literally came from like silly doodles from a guy who works at Pixar now. So it's just like his raw talent sort of like made it a thing at LucasArts, and he worked there, and there's all this history about comic strips and company newsletters and stuff like that. It's just like a really unlikely thing. At a really weird, really like difficult time in games. I keep saying weird, and I think like that's, I think where I'll put it. It's like, man, that was weird.
They are
really good games. I would wholeheartedly recommend any Sam and Max game.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sometimes weird is what we need.
Yeah.
For sure.
Will, you got anything else you want to talk about tonight?
I didn't talk about the Plucky Squire last time, did I?
You did not.
I don't think so.
Not to me, anyway.
Okay, so I also played a preview of the Plucky Squire for IGN. You can read the whole thing. We also have a very beautiful video that is worth looking at because the game is very beautiful. But I played about the first, I don't know, 4 hours of the game, I want to say. And it's really neat. You're a little storybook knight, and he's basically in a Zelda story, and he's like the big hero of the story. And so every time you go to a new area, like the page in the book turns, and it's very cute. And then the bad guy is like, I have discovered that we are characters in the story, which means I have to lose every single time, and that sucks. So I'm just going to kick you out of the book. So he kicks you out of the book, and then all of a sudden you're on like the desk of the little kids that owns the storybook, and you're not playing a 2D game anymore, you're playing a 3D game. And you have to figure out how to get in the book. And it's kind of like a Link Between Worlds, where you have like, you know, you can go into the little things, or you can go around normally. So you can go back into the real world, or you can go onto the page. You can get stuff in the real world and put it in the book, and take stuff out of the book and put it in the real world. And because the main character is also a writer who likes to write about his adventures, like, you can take a word off the page and take it to another page, and it'll be like, listen, this forest, I can't really get around it. And it's like, cool, I'm going to remove the forest and put down the word ruins. And now it's a whole different environment that I can explore.
Oh, wow.
Or like, hey, like this big, bug is in the way. So you have to figure out like, all right, I need to get the word tiny from somewhere and put it on here. Or these frogs are in the way at night, so I need to make it daytime. And so it's going between the real world, the book, other pages in the book, and figuring out like what to do while also being like a really charming little like Zelda game with Zelda combat. And like really gorgeous art. So I don't know what to say about it other than like it's one of the most charming video games I think I've ever seen in my life.
Hell yeah.
I picked that up from the trailer. Like the moment that was revealed, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's cute. I like that.
Yeah, it feels really good to play, and it's very cute, and it's really like, it's just interesting. It's very unique. Even though you can see like, hey, like, this part is clearly like inspired by this Zelda game, or this part is a Mario tribute, right? But it has like all these cute little like mini game things. At one point, like you have to like go into a magic card on the kid's desk and like convince the elf in there to give you her bow so you can kill some big bugs in the book. And then she's like, I don't believe that you're a good guy. We're going to fight. And then you have like a turn-based fight against the elf in the magic card where you're trying to be like, please, I just want the bow. I promise to bring it back. So yeah, it's really charming. And it comes out next month, middle of next month. It's on PlayStation Plus. So if you have PlayStation
Of course,
Plus,
everything comes out in this next month.
yeah, you'll get it for free. But I really recommend like anybody who's interested in it, like looking into it, seeing what people have said about it, I thought my preview was pretty good. We have a lot of footage for it, so yeah. I think it's a really neat game. I think people should take a look at it.
This is one of those that really grabbed my attention when it was shown off. I can't remember what showcase it was for. Was it the indie game showcase? Or
I feel like it was revealed at a Nintendo Direct one of those.
I was also thinking that, but then he said it was on PlayStation or whatever, so I didn't know if it was a multi-plat thing or if it was what have you.
Maybe
Yeah,
for
you know what?
P3 or something.
I do feel like it could have been a Nintendo Direct. Anyways, yeah, this definitely got my attention because it's like the graphical stylings are like very creative. Like I like how it represents what's going on in the story, and I thought that was very interesting. In fact, I think it was actually the same showcase where they showed Arranger, which also grabbed me for similar like visually interesting reasons. And then obviously that's already come out and I've already talked about it. So yeah, I'm excited for this one. And I remember you saying on either on Twitter or in my Discord that you thought Logan would absolutely love it.
Yeah, I think Logan is gonna adore that game. I really enjoyed it. Like a lot of the times when you do something for work, you like do it and you're like, okay, that's done. Plucky Squire, I was like, I'm kind of sad I can't play this game anymore. Like, I'm sad that I've run out of content to see in the little demo version that I got. But I don't know. I think we need like, I know that like there's a lot of indie games that have like, I don't want to say like cutesy aesthetics, but like they're very like whimsical and charming.
Yeah.
But I feel like especially a lot of like the games that get a lot of mainstream attention are not that, and this feels like very cute and whimsical and fun, and it's funny. There's like a wizard named Moonbeard, and he's like, we're using the magic of the conference call to have this conversation. You know, and it's very goofy and like it's not taking itself too seriously. I don't know, just the vibe is immaculate, and I really, really enjoyed it, and yeah, I don't know, it felt unique. Like, I guess for me, a lot of games nowadays feel very like, I've seen this before, I've seen this before, I've seen this before, I've seen this before. And I didn't feel that way playing Plucky Squire, so that was cool.
Even indie games kind of have a style right now.
Right? Like, you're going to make a Metroidvania or a roguelite.
Or a cozy
game with farming elements.
Yeah, like, you are making Stardew Valley, legally distinct Stardew Valley.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I haven't seen anything like this. I thought it was really cool. I love that like you can go between pages of the book and take stuff with you. And I love that the whole conceit of the world was like you're in a book, but that also means that like you can go outside of the book, right? Like it's not just like, oh cool, the page turns, like you're on a new page. But it's really playing with that, what it means to be like a character in a story, and like what if you could go out of the story and bring stuff back or move stuff around, which I think is a really unique conceit.
Yeah, I like that. It's kind of like a bit of the playing with the box that I really like doing that you don't often get with games like this. And then there's like playing with just the idea when you play something like Viewfinder or something, where it's like you're taking advantage of perspective and things. Yeah, it's interesting. Also, I think it's a good name for a game.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and it has like very like the whole thing is narrated like a storybook, which is great. So
nice.
Oh, I forgot to ask during this section: is Stormgate voice acted?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. That was another part of StarCraft 2 where you could feel the money was the voice acting chops. But
yeah.
Anyways,
many of those characters, many of those voice actors, if they weren't big before, they were afterward.
Exactly. Yeah. Good stuff. Chris, you got anything else?
There's a few things I can talk about. I'll do a quick list of things, just real quick, and then there's one or two that I'll touch on in more depth. So in the wake of Brotato, and actually at the same time as I picked up Brotato, I also bought Risk of Rain Returns. Have any of you played any of the Risk of Rains?
Nope. I played the first one.
I've played a bit of the first one. I don't remember if I've played any of the
Is it 3D or side-scroller?
It was 3D.
2D side-scroller, then you've played Risk of Rain 2.
Okay. Yeah.
So the story goes that they made Risk of Rain, which was 2D side-scroller kind of roguelike thing, and then they made Risk of Rain 2. Like, the first game was good, did well for itself. And then they made 2, and they transitioned it to 3D. And Risk of Rain 2 blew the fuck up. Like, it got really big. Mm-hmm. And deservedly so, because I've been replaying it in conjunction with Risk of Rain Returns, and I think that is still my favorite roguelite, like, ever.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Risk of Rain 2 is fantastic. So after that, they went back to the original and they went, okay, cool. We've learned a bunch of stuff from the original. We're going to remake it using a whole bunch of stuff we learned from 2, new characters, items and such ported back and adapted and such. And so I have been playing through that. And yeah. And then just to remind myself that, do I really love Risk of Rain 2 as much as I thought I did? Because I haven't played it in like 18 months or so. I have like 200 hours on Steam, so that goes to show. It's like, I got to get that count over Balatro and put it back in its place.
No, you don't. No, you don't, man. Keep that Balatro number counting.
Yeah, but so I've gone back to Risk of Rain Returns, and I'm in the process of, unlocking all the characters, going through the challenges, finding all the secrets and such, because there's a lot of those. And yeah, that game rules. Highly recommend it.
Nice.
Just if it has Risk of Rain in the name, it's great. The soundtracks also slap really hard, especially in 2.
Yes. Very, very good soundtracks in those games.
Yes.
Nice.
Let's see. So I'm only a couple of hours into this, so I can't speak on it that much, but I started up Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes.
PC?
PC, yeah. Avoided the console ports after what I heard about that.
Yeah, I have no idea what state they're in right now, but it was bad at launch.
Yeah. So I'm only a few hours into it. I'm like at the point where you can actually start recruiting characters. I haven't got like there hasn't been like any big thing where I get like a headquarters or anything just yet, but so just learning that, and it's a Suikoden game.
Yeah.
Enough said. That's all there is to it. It's like very classic Suikoden JRPG stuff. Hasn't really been anything super to just grab me yet, but it is familiar and it is comfy and it is decently well made in that regard. So I'm like, cool.
So it's
just something.
It's a cozy Suikoden.
Without the cozy tag, yes.
Did you run into the healer lady yet?
Yes. The one who just hurls obscenities. She's great. Yeah, just very typical kind of, demure anime healer person. And then just gets into any kind of fight and then just screams the most obscene, heinous shit. I'm like, all right, cool.
She's like Launch from Dragon Ball if Launch was like secretly aware the whole time.
Oh, that is so much better.
Oh, that's great.
I always wondered about that. But then it's kind of like you can kind of tell like it's not intentional. But that would be really funny if it was. That's great. Yeah. I like that a lot.
What else? There was a new Path of Exile League that I dabbled in. So I hadn't played that for, at least a few leagues. So got back into that, played that for a while. It is always great fun. It is very, Path of Exile. It is very Diablo, ARPG kind of thing. There is hordes and hordes of loot, and there are a million mechanics, and the skill tree is absolutely daunting. Yeah. And I love that game. But my God.
Yeah, I tried to play that, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool. This is like Diablo. It's like got some things going on." And then I open the skill up. I'm out.
Everyone, yeah. It's a quit moment for so many people. They're just like, "Oh God, it's a sphere grid. Oh God."
Well, they call that in the action games a filter.
The problem with me wasn't that it was a sphere grid because I love Final Fantasy X. The problem was people are like, oh yeah, all your decisions are permanent. And I'm like, no.
That's not true.
I'm not doing that.
That's also completely not true.
Because the thing with me is like I played a ton of Diablo 2, and it's like you're doing your build, you're playing the game, you're just enjoying it, and you're like, this skill feels really good. And then you come to find out later, oh, this is like useless. Why would you do this when you could do this over here? And then it's like, okay, well now I'm boned and I have to start all over, and I'm not doing all of that again.
Yeah, Path of Exile has respecs and things like that you can do. It's not permanent, so
okay.
Yeah. But
then I was lied to. So
yeah, if you're ever interested in trying Path of Exile, like my advice to anyone out there is find someone who plays Path of Exile, have them guide you.
Yeah,
just ask questions and figure out systems and just go, yeah. You need a Sherpa to navigate this shit. It is. Yeah.
And look up the skill tree on Google first and just look at the image and like sit and see how you react to it.
Yeah.
That'll be your
get your
know that it is a lot more straightforward than it looks.
You're gonna recoil
my
in
God.
horror. It's fine. Just embrace it.
This is normal.
Hey,
Swallow
fear is the mind killer.
Swallow
I'm
swallow the bile. Keep going.
I'm gonna let my fear wash over me and pass through me, and when it's gone, only I will remain. So
Only I will remain still staring at this fucking skill tree. Like, where do I go?
Yeah.
Where do I even start?
Yeah. I love Path of Exile, but it took a while to get to that point, and there's still so much I don't know. I don't like challenge the higher end stuff or go really hard on it.
Each skill point is the tiny death that brings obliteration.
Yeah, well, you think that's bad? There's multiple skill tree. That's just the first one.
Oh God, Jesus.
But yeah, so I played a bunch of that. And then the bigger thing that I can probably talk about, I got two, but I'll just talk about one until I get more time in the other one. So I'm about 8 hours into Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins.
Yes. Yes. Oh,
I bought it, but I have not played it yet. Yeah.
it's wild. It is so wild.
People tell me this story gets good. I don't believe them. I don't believe them.
Wait, how many hours are you in?
8 hours.
Okay, that is too many hours to wait.
Okay, so Lucas, you've played and finished it, I assume?
Yeah.
Okay, so I got to the point where I just got the fifth party member. So I beat the flashback boss for real. So
Okay.
Man,
So
how do I even start with this game?
Is it here's what I'll ask. Is it like a bad movie? Is it like a good bad movie where it's so bad it's good?
Yes,
no, I don't.
but Lucas tells me it gets good. Like actually good. I'm not sure I see it yet.
It is really weird and off-putting and awkward and strange for a very long time.
Yes.
And then there's a mode shift where it's like, here's why it was weird and awkward and off-putting the whole time, and now we're gonna like wrap it around itself and actually like turn all of that weird stuff into a story.
Recontextualize it.
Yeah. And then it's not just like, oh, we'll do this right before the end. Like there's meat afterwards. So it's not like a last minute kind of, the story was good the whole time. We were just gaslighting. Yeah. I think like it takes the Final Fantasy 1 story, which is barely a story,
Yeah.
and just like goes completely off the rails with it and makes a great effort.
Utterly unhinged.
Yeah. Like huge effort to take all of that unhinged, weird, like stuff that is going to come off as horrible to any reasonable person, and puts a ton of muscle into like making sure there like it goes somewhere and there's like a reason for it and contextualize it. And it's just like, I think for a lot of people, when they hit that point, it works in like a way. Yeah. It's not like, watch the anime for 20 hours first and then it gets good. It's like, if it clicks the way it clicks for people, it's
I'm sure that's the
magical
case, but I'm about to post a screenshot and I need you all to look at that. And then I need to know, is this game aware? Does it know? Are they taking it seriously or are they not? I don't know.
All right, I need to see it.
Oh man, I'm scared. It could be
What
something.
in the world?
That is a piece of equipment that I got, and I equipped it, and I stared. I took a screenshot. I posted that to my friends' chat and said, they can't be taking this game seriously, right? They have to know, right? Right? I can't tell. I can't tell if there is somebody on there who is taking this deadpan seriously and actually thinks this is cool or whatever. Or the other ones, just everyone around them is in the know. It's just like, yeah, okay, no. I can't tell with this game. And it's driving me insane.
It is
In a
so
good
hard
way,
to tell.
but
It is so hard to tell. I'm not even sure even now.
it's
Yeah, it is Nojima at his absolute most sicko mode.
Oh,
that
I
think he's
thought you were
ever
gonna
been.
stop. I thought you were gonna stop there and say it's Nojima at his most.
It is Nojima at his most Nojima. Yes. Yeah.
Nomura was
essence of
involved in this
Nojima.
too, right? Like
Barely. He
Okay.
basically pitched the like setup. Angry
Okay.
Man. Yeah.
yeah, story of an angry man. Yes.
Yeah, that is it. And then he's just been catching strays the whole time.
Because I knew he was involved, I didn't know the extent, and so Nojima is the sicko for writing it. Fair, but
I need to look it up again, but that actually came up in an interview where like somebody asked him about it. He's like, people keep blaming me or asking me about this, and
people
I didn't
keep
do
blaming.
anything.
Yeah, I have seen that one. He catches a lot of strays for a lot of stuff, not
That
just
was so
in that
funny.
one, but in all sorts of things. It's like, yeah, it's like, man, you have a style. You're kind of known for this shit.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like the weirdly modern aesthetic out of nowhere. Everything, very grayscale in terms of like color grading. It's like, yeah, okay, we know.
Everyone's
Thank
like
you, Nomura.
really fashionable, but in like a way that a actual person wouldn't like do in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got things that sort of bled into like the Square Enix house style over the years.
Yeah, and I'm sure like someone on Team Ninja is just also, taking a glance at this and going, yeah, we can play around our style as well. But it's just
I mean, it's kind of a Neo game in some ways, and like
it plays more like Neo than anything else.
yeah,
How did I put it? I put it to a friend of mine that it's relatively easy. Like I went in expecting something more like a Souls-like. It's got aspects of that, but like I'm just brutalizing my way through it, and it's glorious and absurd and over the top. But as a result, I think I compared it to Borderlands in that it's sometimes serious, sometimes not, and my god, is it loot driven?
so much.
There
Loot.
is so much loot.
Oh man, they almost go too far with it at a certain point.
Yeah, like when there's a setting in there that is just auto dismantle loot, and you find yourself turning that on very quickly, or just getting completely inundated, then they probably went overboard with it. But,
Yeah,
I just
Some
hit
people like
optimize
that.
and
It
just roll with
couldn't
it.
be me.
Yeah, the loot comes in so quick and frequent, and I'm just like, hit the optimize button. If I get to late game, then it'll matter. But
Yeah.
until then, it's just
yeah.
Good
It-
stuff.
It's such a distinct game. It's like one of the interesting things about Square Enix is they try new things, or they sort of jump onto trends sometimes, but they do it and try to like cram it into like their stuff, even if it doesn't quite fit. It's like here, it's like it borrows the Dark Souls mechanics, or Souls-like mechanics and structure, but it doesn't care that much about being hard. It doesn't really care that much about like other things Souls-like care about. It just sort of like borrows the fundamentals and then just like goes and does its own thing.
And I don't mind it, honestly. Like, the way it plays, like, the gameplay aspect of it is definitely the part I'm vibing with the most. That and the music. The music's really good. But,
The way you just brutalize monsters is so funny sometimes.
it's great. Like, everything has, like, effectively, like, a stagger gauge. And if you fill it out, then you get the button press, which is, you grab them and you brutalize them in a horrible instant kill.
Just
And there's no
not
blood,
hold
because
back.
blood turns this into red crystal and then shatters. So it's not like that. But if there wasn't that, it's like everything is just red crystallizing. It's like, oh my god, this would look like a Doom glory kill. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm so confused by the game, but I kind of fucking love it. It's so weird.
The way people have latched onto it, it's like it's one of those weird things where you think it's irony at first because there's so much irony on the internet. And I think part of it still is irony, but then there's a lot of like people who are actually like, no, this is actually really good and like deserve more attention. And it just has this presence about it. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, it got memed on really hard and deservedly so. You know,
Yeah.
I'm here to chew cum and kill chaos, right?
Yeah. I do legitimately think like what they do with like Jack Garland by the end makes him like an interesting character.
One would hope.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's also another thing that's really weird about it is that it references all the other FFs as well. Like certain areas.
Yeah.
So this is a universe in which all of those other stories happened.
It's more like the dungeons are vaguely themed after individual games.
But they reference like the numbered dimensions. So one of the very first dungeons that stood out to me immediately is like a pirate cave in like the sea grotto thing. And the intro text describes it as, you know, related to dimension 14. And as I'm playing it, I'm like, wait a second, this is Sestasha from FF14. That's what they mean.
Yeah.
And then the next one is like Dimension 2. It's like, it's Pandemonium Castle from FF2. The next one is like the forest area from FF13, and so on and so forth. It's like, they keep calling them, you know, dimensions and referencing all these other places. I'm like, how does that play into it? Because these are still places and story beats that happened in FF1, what limited one, you know, story there was. It's just, it's so weird. It's so weird. I don't know how to pass it yet.
I think that stuff is pretty surface level. I think it's just like the usual, like, oh, it's a Final Fantasy spinoff, so we gotta like throw in all the Easter eggs and stuff. You know, like in like a Chocobo racing or whatever. It's just like this game exists in such a different like vibe.
Yeah,
I guess that was kind of their way to do it. So they can do like, yeah, here's some music remixes and some little nods and blah blah.
Yeah. Like the screenshot I took was just straight up. It's like, here is the Crystal Tower from Final Fantasy 3.
Yeah.
Also from Final Fantasy 14 because they reuse that. And yeah.
Yeah. The actual like story itself is very Final Fantasy 1.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's still following all the beats. It's just, it's weird. And I can see because I've played through and finished FF1. I know what happens in there. So I kind of have a hint of what's happening here because, but it's just, I'm curious to see what they do with it. But man, it's fucking weird. Yeah. And so much of the presentation, like a lot of the dialogue and cutscenes and how it's shot, feels very cheap, very slapped together. It feels like, despite the, you know, overall strong presentation, and then it's
the intro is so weird when it does the My Way thing, and like the video is like super compressed and splotchy, and it kind of cuts off in the middle of a song in the weird way. It's just like, what is happening?
Like, I get you use that for a trailer, and we were all just like, why the fuck are you using this for a trailer?
Yeah, it's like they snapped it out of a trailer and put it in the game.
Yeah, it's so bizarre.
It's so weird.
It's seriously one of the weirdest fucking games. And so yeah, watch this space. I got to play more. I need to see more of this fucking craziness. And it helps that it's really fun to play.
You got a taste for blood. You got that morbid fascination in you.
I got to see it through. I got to see where it leads.
For what it's worth, I wrote a whole essay. It's on the Epic Games Store blog about how they portrayed Bahamut. And it's basically a big wind-up for a joke that almost takes the piss out of like the ending of the base game in a way that's just really funny.
Oh boy, I'll have to read that.
So if you get that far,
I'll read it when I do. Then yeah, okay,
nice. All right, we got
treasure at the end.
We got time for like one more thing, maybe two. So Will, do you have any big things you wanted to hit before we head out?
I'm good.
No. Lucas, did you have anything else?
Time to lock you all in the room so I can talk about Fate Stay Night for 2 hours.
Oh no!
No, I'm not actually going to do that. But I am playing that game for
enough.
work, and it makes me happy. But
How is that?
it's nice. The localization's really well written. The UI is nice and breezy. It doesn't feel like I stole something that barely functions like the kind of fan translations work.
Yeah. This is the first official translation, right?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah,
okay.
it has never been localized before, which is just wild to think about.
Yeah, that's obscene given how prevalent this shit is.
Yeah, it's like that is a spot on the timeline as far as like visual novels and stuff go. Like a really early, really important spot. It's wild that it's just on Steam for like $30 now. But yeah, I'm not gonna like go into it. That's a rabbit hole.
It's a rabbit hole that I've only briefly peered into and seen bits of, and like I don't wanna. I really don't wanna. You people scare me.
It's not like Muv-Love where you have to like sit there and like
Be gaslit.
I know I sound like It's like, I'm not lying to you. I swear this is interesting. No, this
is fucking great. You just got to get through an entire game.
Yeah, no, it's not that level of degenerate. I promise. Yeah. Oh god.
And then they pulled a rug, and Jesus Christ.
Well, I'm not going to pretend to know about any of that. So, Lucas,
those
or
were
Chris?
some words.
What's that?
I said those were words.
Yes, they
were.
were. They certainly were. Is that the,
one...
I don't want to be crass, but I feel like I saw something on Twitter where people were saying that it might have been this. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna get into it. But
oh god.
I've seen some things, you guys.
Yeah,
all right.
Fate's weird.
But
go watch Fate Zero and then touch nothing else. It's the only thing that's kind of like safe and standalone.
All right. Lucas or Chris, did any of you have anything you wanted to cover before we dip out of here for the night?
I got one more I can touch on briefly. So,
all right.
Have any of you seen or played Once Human?
I don't. Sounds familiar, but I don't think
It's
so.
free to play survival RPG kind of thing by NetEase. So
then
no. that's really recent, right?
It's recent, yeah.
I remember
July 9th. So
yeah. So I played the demo of it during the recent Steam Fest because one of my MMO buddies, picked it up on a whim and said, "Hey, this is actually pretty good. Let's try this." And I'm like, "All right, cool." So we tried it and we really enjoyed the demo. So we're just getting to the actual game now and interim of stuff. But it's interesting. It's
it's got Lovecraftian elements.
Imagine like kind of standard survival Rust game, except very Eldritch Horror, Abomination, such. But it has like I almost liken it to a Fallout game, like a Bethesda Fallout game, in that there's a lot of roaming around and map markers and things like that. But you just explore, gather all that stuff, deal with all these weird Eldritch Horrors, and then go back, build up your own little base and facilities to get better gear and progress the loop.
Oh,
and with multiplayer elements and such.
I was just going to say, fun fact, I was looking up the Wikipedia page, scrolled down to the reception. Fun fact, a former co-host is mentioned. IGN's Justin Coreyes gave the game a grade of 8 out of 10.
Hey. Yeah, we know people. Who knew?
Our buddy.
Shout out to Justin. But
Shout out to Justin.
Yeah.
Justin's great.
But yeah, Once Human is very like it's unpolished and feels very AA, and there's a lot of like aspects like just lifted from other games and that are just jank and weird, but then the core of it is really good, really enjoyable. We're having a blast with it, me and my friends, just even when just playing solo and such. It is just a vibe. You really do just fall into it and do the whole kind of, explore, loot, gather and such, and then every so often you just see some weird Eldritch Horror SCP kind of shit, and it's like done in a pretty good way.
And it
like,
depletes your sanity gauge. And
genuinely, yeah. Like areas that are, have high, like effectively radiation, so your health just gets eaten into, which is functionally your sanity gauge. And then you'll see like weird big monsters and such. Like the first intro boss thing is literally a siren head. It's they know exactly what they're doing in that regard. So yeah. There's but yeah, it's oddly compelling, and like again, it is rough, poorly translated, really dodgy in a lot of places, but goddamn, the bones of it are enjoyable, and we're having fun with it. So yeah, we'll hopefully get some more time into it.
Oddly compelling is what I would call many eldritch horrors, and I think that if you were in that world, you would be like, oh, this is oddly compelling, and bones are fun.
This is how it starts.
This is how it starts. Yeah.
Look, if this beard becomes tentacles, then I've played too much Once Human, okay? But other than that, yeah.
Well, either that or you're now the captain of the Flying Dutchman and you're derelict in your duties. But yes.
That's also possible, yeah. Part of the ship, part of the crew.
Part of the
Eldritch Horrors also in Sam and Max the Devil's Playhouse.
There you go.
Nice. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Now you're wandering around saying bones are fun and these things are oddly compelling. Then you're naming your cat something just unspeakable. You gotta draw the line somewhere,
Yeah.
So, all right, guys, what do you say we get out of here?
Yog Saga.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
If only.
Yeah. Anyway, I got a WoW expansion to play, so we should get out of here.
All right. Thank you all for joining us for this episode of The Platformers. We love having you guys along for the ride. And also, all you guys, Lucas and Will, it's been a while. Last time it was just Chris and I. It's good to have the whole squad back together for this one.
Happy to be back. So
if you guys have thoughts or topics or anything you want us to see, you can hit us up on Twitter. And you can find us on Monday nights at twitch.tv/Ribnax, RIBNAX. Where we stream each episode live. And then the following days, you can find it up on Spotify and Google Play and all those sorts of places. And you can see the video version archived over at youtube.com/@Ribnax. And you can find me on Twitter at that same name and on Blue Sky and Backlogged at Brian Barnett. Yeah, there you go. And you'll be able to see some stuff that I'm working on soon on I guess I can finally say, because all the like paperwork is done, I'm gonna be writing for Kotaku, so I'm gonna have some Borderlands 3 guides going up over there. So if you're looking to find some of the weirder stuff in this game and maybe experience some stuff that you haven't in your original playthroughs,
Borderlands,
you may have misspoke.
Did I say Borderlands?
You said Borderlands 3.
I did not mean Borderlands 3. There's too much Borderlands.
I mentioned Borderlands earlier.
You did earlier, and got stuck in my brain. Baldur's Gate, something that you might actually think about when you think about me more. But yeah, I'm gonna be doing guides for Baldur's Gate 3. I'm gonna be tackling a bunch of weird offshoot stuff that you might not know is even in the game. Which, I mean, every patch there's more of that, so should be good. So I will definitely let you guys know when that is going up. But Chris, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on the internet either by my name, Chris Cornelis, or as Delpheir, DELFEIR. You can find my website at versusthebacklog.com. That's vsthebacklog.com, one word. You can also check out something I have assisted. A shout out to a project that I've assisted on at acclaimedgames.com. That's a big project there that's been ongoing and worth checking out. Yeah. Go around the circle, I guess.
Will, what's up?
You can find me on Twitter at @ByWillBurger. That's Burger with an O, not a U. Most recently, I've got some stuff on IGN and Shack News. I'm also just turned in a feature that'll be appearing in an episode or an issue of PC Gamer a little bit later. So keep an eye out for that if you read any of those places. Otherwise, hit me up on Twitter. Let's chat about games.
Lucas.
All right. You can find me on Twitter at Hokuto no Lucas. You can find my writing at Shack News, at Kotaku, and unfortunately in the very last issue of Game Informer. If you can track a copy of that.
You made it in, but at what cost?
Yeah. Keep an eye out on those 2 websites though tomorrow, because now that fucking Star Wars garbage is out of the way, the sickos can come out starting tomorrow morning.
Nice.
So look forward to some reviews from me.
It's me. I'm a sicko.
Nice. Good stuff. All right. Well, again, thank you for joining us. If you like what we do, leave us a review or tell somebody about the show because we don't advertise. So word of mouth is the only way we have to grow. From everybody here at the Platformers, we hope you have a wonderful, fantastic, glorious, incandescent week. And stay safe out there because until next time, we are out.
Peace.
Peace.
Goodbye.